Too many people, too little space. The rent is too high, and the time it takes you to get from one place to another is too long.
Kevin Kandetzki is moving from the big city to a small town, from quaking Berlin to quaint Görlitz in the easternmost tip of Germany. Temporarily, he says, there's too many retired seniors and too little to do there, and far too much support for the right-wing extremist AfD party. That all doesn't necessarily make Görlitz the city of Kevin's dreams, but they are rolling out the red carpet for the artist and his family. Final preparations before moving day. Kevin needs to drop off his paintings at the gallery. In Görlitz, everything has already been taken care of. The project, Testing the City, has arranged an apartment, working space for Kevin and his wife, and even a daycare spot for their daughter, free of charge for 4 weeks. And everything will be so close by. Not at all like Berlin.
When I take my daughter to daycare in the morning and then head on to my studio, I've already spent an hour traveling. Over the week, that adds up to several hours that I could be using for better things.
While he's gone, a gallerist will be displaying his work. In the national and international art scene, Kevin's made a name for himself as Socar Uno.
So basically, 5 pieces, prints, 1 framed piece, and the 3 originals, obviously. And that's the final price.
Kevin is especially known as a street artist. Most of his artwork covers walls and buildings. He appreciates all the free space that a city like Berlin has to offer. The big day has arrived. Off to Görlitz. Since the car is so full, the family decides to travel separately. Kevin takes his daughter Amalia in the car. His wife Frederica will follow on the train with their newborn Nikolai. The trip takes 3 hours, on the road and in the train. Frederica is still a bit sceptical. The far-right populist AfD party captured 30% of the popular vote during the last parliamentary elections. And the last local elections almost saw an AfD mayor voted into office.
But we'll just have to see when we get there. See how much it impacts daily life, or how conspicuous it is, or what people are doing to work against it. That's something we could get involved in. We're originally from a fairly small town in Thuringia in eastern Germany, so we're accustomed to polarization. And luckily, there are always people who fight back. I'm curious to see what the daycare they arranged for us will be like. It'll be a huge difference. There, our daughter will only be in a group of 12 children, whereas here she shares 1 floor with 60 other children in this open space concept.
Once they've reached Görlitz, the family is greeted by a project worker. They are shown around their new accommodation. This will be their home for the next 4 weeks.
Unser Wohnzimmer. Komm, wir schauen uns mal.
3 rooms, a kitchen, 1 bathroom. The project is covering their rent. Amalia is delighted to discover they have a dishwasher. In fact, she seems pleased with everything. And Kevin? Living in a small town with a three-piece sofa?
My biggest fear is to stagnate in some backwaters, to just stop moving, get stuck. It doesn't matter in which regard, whether in my work or with my family. I'm not the type who is always pressing ahead, but I don't want to stand still either.
Kevin has to sign some paperwork before he is handed the keys and the apartment is all his, at least for the next 4 weeks.
Super, alles klar, danke schön. Ja, danke sehr.
Robert Knipschild is a development planner and is managing the Testing the City project. His aim is to attract young people to the ageing town. While many apartments are empty here, living space in large cities like Berlin is becoming increasingly scarce and unaffordable.
We're at risk of a widening divide. I think rural spaces, more remote areas and small and medium-sized cities are all in danger of becoming marginalized. Our project is trying to work against that trend. We want to showcase Görlitz as a medium-sized city that can relieve pressure on major cities and contribute to a more balanced population distribution throughout Germany.
Today, he's visiting Kevin in his studio. The young family has been in Görlitz for 2 weeks now.
How have you been in Görlitz so far?
So far, it's been quite laid back in a lot of ways. It's not as loud as it is in a big city, and things are a bit more relaxed. I have lots to do, so I am stressed, but it's still more laid back than in a large city.
I'm glad to hear that. That's what we initially assumed, that people would be happy to get away from the stress of living in a major city and find some tranquility here in Görlitz.
I think it's beautiful here. Sometimes it feels like it's in the wrong place, but it's still beautiful.
Feedback from the project's participants is important for Knipschild. It helps him get a better understanding of what young people are missing. Kevin is currently reinventing himself and his work, moving away from street art towards smaller formats. Right now he's experimenting with foil pictures. It's work that he could continue doing in Görlitz as well. And yet...
To be honest, if you compare Görlitz to Berlin, it's pretty unexciting here in terms of art. In Berlin, you can meet up and exchange ideas with artists from all over the world. That would hardly ever happen here. Being here is great for creating art. It's quiet, working spaces and studios are all affordable, and they're quite nice. But I'd like to access the international market in order to sell my work.
And that's where Berlin has a clear advantage. While Kevin works, sometimes until late at night, Frederica takes care of the children. In Berlin, they would never have been able to reach their daycare on foot. Here, it's a 15-minute walk.
It's a huge relief and makes our daily routine a lot less stressful because we're not stuck in traffic, getting frustrated.
Frederica asks Amalia if she enjoys the walk or prefers driving to daycare like they did in Berlin.
Berlin mit Auto.
Amalia says she would prefer to be driven to daycare like she was in Berlin. When Kevin can find the time, he meets with his family in the afternoon so they can all go to the playground together. But so far, Frederica and Kevin haven't managed to make any acquaintances with the other Görlitz residents.
We rarely meet other parents here who are open to inviting us to meet up sometimes. In Berlin, that happens more. People are more open towards strangers. We're strangers here. And in Berlin, almost everyone is a stranger because you can't know everyone. But we still managed to meet some really cool people at the playground.
Amalia doesn't need her father's hand, she says. She can do it herself.
Eins, zwei, drei. Und? Wie war's?
Gut.
So far, the family hasn't noticed the AfD or their supporters at all. But they have noticed that the residents here do seem a bit more conservative.
I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but it feels like we're getting stared at more often here because we're a bit exotic looking. You know, a young, hip family. Like I said, maybe it's all in my head, but that's what it feels like to me.
After her maternity leave, Frederica wants to go back to her job in the culture industry, but to her, Görlitz has little culture to offer.
To me, it's always important to make sure you don't get left behind. This might be a good decision for the kids, but I need to make sure that I fulfill my own needs as well.
Ich muss ja selber auch meinen Ansprüchen gerecht werden.
It's their final evening in Görlitz. In parting, the project helped Kevin to set up an exhibition. And at least a few culture enthusiasts show up. Nevertheless, the family has made up its mind.
We're not going to move here. We had a great time. It's a beautiful city. But the people's mindset here just isn't open enough for us.
But Kevin could still picture coming back from time to time for certain projects.